This is a public informational meeting for State Project 102-362, which is the overheight vehicle detection system for the Washington Street Metro North Railroad Bridge, number 3693R. I'm Mike Yosak. I'm with the Department of Public Works. We also have a representative from the State Department of Connecticut here, Jeff Flasher. So basically the problem down there, the bridge is only 11 foot 2 inches above the roadway. So legal height of vehicles in Connecticut is 13.5 feet. So occasionally you'll get trucks down there that can't get under the bridge. There's a pretty well established history over the years of bridge strikes there resulting in significant cost and delays. We looked at the accident reports. In the last 3 years, there's been 14 accidents directly attributable to the bridge, including 12 actual bridge strikes. The other 2 were results of the truck backing up to avoid the bridge. And they're pretty well distributed yearly, 6 in 2015, 4 in 2016, and 4 in 2017. No real injuries reported, but basically it averages out to be about an incident once every 3 months. In addition, there's numerous vehicles that are forced to back up, causing delays. Following photos and videos are courtesy of Lindsay there. You see a truck here on Washington Street, another truck in this one. We have a boat that's being forced to back up on Washington Street because it can't get under the bridge. And there's more of that truck. So as that truck tries to turn around, it's delaying traffic on both sides. And it's not even just this direction, but other directions as well that we have those incidents.
And this guy in the blue shirt was a driver in a vehicle that actually got out of his car to help direct the traffic, or direct the truck to turn around.
So what we're trying to do about it, in 2016, we applied for a federal accident grant. A few months later, we received notice that we got the award. We began to work on preliminary design plans, which we submitted to DOT earlier this year for their review. And that's what we're going to be showing you in the next couple slides. As part of DOT's preliminary review, the Environmental Planning Unit did a Section 106 NEPA review, which is required by federal funding. The unit found no adverse effects on historic property. They submitted that to the State Historic Preservation Officer, and I think as of this morning, they agreed with the DOT's findings. There's also no tribal consultations necessary on this project. So basically what we're proposing is an overheight vehicle detection system on each approach to the bridge. Consists of 2 poles with a infrared light on it. When the truck hits that, breaks the beam, it triggers this VMS variable message sign to go on, warning the truck to either pull over and notify authorities that they need to assistance getting out of there, or to detour them in various directions depending on which approach to the bridge they're reaching it.
Mike, it's hard to see. Can you give us an idea of how far back that is on each approach?
I will show that in the,
Okay.
There's about 2 more slides, and
Thank you.
we'll see that from each approach. The system's going to be connected to our citywide fiber optic MAN, which will go to police dispatch, traffic operations. From there, they can turn on some of our existing traffic cameras and monitor the situation, helping out and getting officers or whatever is needed to the location. This is one of the slides. This is Washington Street, the west side over by the library in 50 Washington Street. So near the post, around the location of the post office, the poles will go in with the light. It'll trigger the sign, which is at the corner of Washington and Madison, telling the truck to make that right turn on Madison, that he can't get under the bridge there.
So, could you go back to that? Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead. We can go back to the others, we can go back to the other side again. Where exactly is this? Is this setback?
This is the post office.
This is the post office? Oh, so this is Washington Street. This is 50.
This is coming from Martin Luther King towards
Yes. This is
towards
50
Bridge.
Washington. Okay, got it. Okay.
This, on South Main Street, because Elizabeth is the only way you can get out of there, the detection will be up by the police station. It'll trigger a sign at the corner of Elizabeth and South Main telling you have to go right on Elizabeth Street.
So what's displayed, the sign display will be different depending on the approach?
That's correct. As you're coming down North Main Street, the sign will be kind of in the middle between Marshall and Washington Street. And it'll tell the truck that they have to make that right turn there onto Washington Street, that they can't go forward or they can't go left. And on the last one, this is a fairly difficult one, because once you get on Washington Street, you're kind of stuck. There's no way to get out there. So there'll be a flashing sign at the entrance to Washington Street, LED lit sign with the bridge heights. And then as you go further down the street, we'll have these sensors and the approach saying, the truck's got to pull to the right there and wait for assistance to get them safely out of there, so they're not backing down the street with traffic coming in all different directions. So next steps are, we'd like to complete the final plans by the end of 2019, and construction to begin in the spring of 2020, with the project completed by the fall of 2020. There's a slide I neglected to put on here, sorry about that, but the funding is, the estimated cost of the project is $450,000, with 90% of that funded by the federal government, 10% by the city, and the city had done the design work under its own forces and at the city's cost. It's in the brochure there. We're asking if you have any any comments on this project. We would like them in writing or by email. You could send them to me at meosock@norwalkct.org or 125 East Avenue. We'd like those back by September 4th, because our next step, once we get those back, we'll make a decision whether to move this project forward or not, and make the recommendation to council it'd be ultimately council's decision to endorse the project. So,
I'm just going to ask a little bit of question about the scale of these centuries, if you will.
okay.
The scale and size.
Yeah,
and just overall fitting.
we know it's a very urban area. We don't want to make them overly huge.
Well, it's an historic urban area.
Historic urban area.
Yeah.
So, I think the dimensions are on. I can go back.
Maybe they're here and I can't read them.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to read on there, but
Are the dimensions marked off?
yeah, this is
Let's see.
it's about 73 inches wide, by 34 inches high on the VMS sign.
So 73 inches wide is like the sign itself?
Would be the sign itself, yeah. So it'd be basically
So it's 6 feet
6 feet
across?
across. Up. It's not as big when it's up on a mast arm. So if it made it any smaller, people wouldn't be able to read it because.
How big do you think that screen is, Mike? Across
That's about,
4 feet or so?
yeah, the screen, yeah. So it's,
So another 2 feet. on
yeah, it's
top of that.
not much bigger than this screen.
It's really big.
Is there gonna be, this is gonna go through committee of public works?
It will go through Public Works, yes.
Is there gonna be a public hearing versus just a public information session?
No, it'll be this public informational session.
So the committee won't hold a public hearing?
No.
Do you know that, or has the chair already told you that they don't intend to have a public hearing?
I mean, well, I guess it would be up to them if they want to hold another one. It's not required, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So, I mean, regardless if it's required or not, this is an information meeting, so this is not a formal hearing for feedback from the public, but it also wasn't noticed anywhere except for the one notice in the hour, and it's not on the city calendar. You can see the turnout is light, and it's a fairly controversial project. So that would be my concern, and I would, certainly reach out to the chair of Public Works and to the council leadership on that. What is I'm having trouble, first of all, 2 things logistically. How soon can your presentation be posted on the city website as a link to it?
We could do that tomorrow, mostly.
Okay. And with the information that you provided here from the approaches, I'm not sure I'm understanding the one coming from the Straffolino Bridge. So someone coming over the Straffolino Bridge and heading that way, where is the signage that directs them to turn left or right onto water for an overheight truck?
Yeah, there isn't any at that location.
So an oversized truck can come over the Straffolino Bridge, directly down Washington, and not know.
At the entrance to Washington Street, there'll be a bridge height sign with the LED lights on it, that they can see what the bridge height is.
But they'll be beyond that and not have any place to turn around if they go beyond what the signage is. Because all of these bridges have signage now, the problem is they ignore the signage, or they don't understand the signage.
Or they're too far.
So if it, right, and they're committed.
Right.
And Mike knows why I bring this up, because I live in East Norwalk, and we have the East Avenue Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The city's spending hundreds of millions of dollars to lower and widen the road so that trucks can fit under there. Instead of hitting it, we have less strikes, I think, in the time frame you're showing there. But the alternative the community wanted was this type of signage and, this type of detection with a warning signal at a point in time where someone can make a decision not to have that approach. When Darien had this issue with their bridge on US 1, which sees way more traffic than any of these bridges, they compelled the state to have signage even up on the highway that warns the trucks that they can't access the post road that way. And I think that this city should, settle for no less than that. But if you're going to expend this kind of money and not really have an approach coming from Straffolino Bridge, given the traffic that's expected at the mall, it's going to be a problem if there's nowhere for them to turn. They've already committed by the time they're possibly going to see that signage. So why don't you have a warning detection at the North Water and Water Street intersection? Something that flashes like from the Straffolino Bridge and says you have to turn left or right.
I mean, we can work with the state and see if we can move it back over on this Straffolino Bridge.
On the bridge strike history that you have, can you tell me how many were hit going eastbound and how many westbound?
It's a lot of them were hit from the South Main Street approach.
Yep.
So going east.
North, I guess it would, north it would be.
Coming from the Haviland, like coming from South Main, say from.
Like taking a right under the bridge.
No,
No,
going straight under.
going straight under the bridge.
Rolls it back like a sardine can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, signage, has there ever been an attempt, not signage directly on the bridge, because that's currently what's used. Is there signage prior to, leading up to?
There are
There are.
bridge height signs.
But I know for, like, there are no signs on the Straffolino Bridge,
Right.
notifying people of the bridge heights when they're coming over.
No.
I drove so many, because I'm like, there's gotta be, I kept thinking I was missing them, but the first one is, it's like in front of Washington Prime, when they're already
Oh,
on
yeah.
Washington
Yeah.
Street. And that's the problem, that they don't have any forewarning before that turn. And so, to have this detection system, I mean, this detection system is a ton of money, and it's doing what I do basically, when I have to call the police and say, send somebody down, there's a truck stuck, you know? Like, it's not
Do you
gonna
live-
solve.
do you live
I
there?
manage the clothing store right in the middle
Okay.
of the block,
And I-
next to Match.
And I live around South Main in Washington, so I guess we're all kind of asking leading questions, which is there an interim step here to do a little bit of a rethink on signage and where it's placed, as opposed to going, leapfrogging over to
Yeah.
a very.
Yeah, that's kind of the
expensive
purpose, that's kind of the purpose of this meeting, is
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take your input
Yeah.
and then work with the state and the stakeholders to try to enhance the project,
Sure.
if the project's desired. I mean,
Yeah,
that-
I would say the suggestion is, and Jeff, I'm sorry, I missed your last name, is it?
Passenger.
Okay, do you have a card too before you leave?
I actually don't, sorry.
Okay, or maybe you can write down your name
Yeah,
first, so we can get in touch with you. So are you familiar with the Darien signage?
Not at all.
It's, okay, so Darien, they have a low overpass bridge for the railroad. And from an engineering point of view, they had as much of a flooding problem as we have in Norwalk. But they made a decision that they weren't going to lower the road there or raise the bridge. They were gonna leave it the height, and they didn't want the trucks to come through. Their signage goes in every directional approach to that bridge, from as far back as maybe a mile, I think, even they start. And the state committed to putting signage on the highway north and southbound that alerted them to exit 11, or whatever that exit is, that you couldn't get under it. So somebody would have to really come up with an explanation that's beyond reason for me to say that we wouldn't be entitled to that same signage in lieu of or in conjunction with something more sophisticated like the infrared. The other thing I think you can consider, especially coming over the Straffolino, if you didn't want that big electronic infrared trigger thing, is other communities also use, I don't know what you call them, I call them the car wash things. So they'll hit these things, these like rubberized
like a
strings that are
strike
hanging.
bar,
Yeah.
What is it?
Like a strike bar or something.
Okay, yeah, and so that would, I mean, visually, a truck operator would see that if they hit that, then their truck is over height for whatever they're approaching. So I think there's a number of pieces still of this discussion. Some of us thought it was gonna happen in advance of the award of the funding for this. And quite frankly, I think we'd have better turnout and maybe hold another meeting and maybe have it in the communities.
Yeah.
I think, and what the state has done before, and they're really good at doing this, is coming into the community.
Sure.
So if you guys are engaged in South Norwalk proper, maybe you have something down there at the library, or in one of the buildings there, and have them come down. And probably East Norwalk would just take, piggyback on that, or we would have our own. Because this is a topic that people are really interested in, the funding of it and how it's going to be controlled and.
Well, and I'll just add that, because the Straffolino Bridge obviously is a main feeder, right, to the issue,
Right.
to the sensitive area. Likewise, so is South Main. And we've got Martin Luther King Boulevard that's not being used. I mean, it was built and intended to service trucks.
Right.
I mean, basically. And what they're all doing is they're doing a cut through a very small, pretty small neighborhood, and they're getting tangled up all the time at that bridge, right where I live. So I'm witness to it. But what about signage directing trucks in general to use Martin Luther King Boulevard, which is why it was constructed to begin with?
Yeah.
And it gives them access to every point they need, with the exception of some delivery trucks.
Yeah, we can't prohibit trucks from using
No,
the
but you
streets.
can provide signage of encouraging them and alerting them, as you say, not a mile back necessarily, but letting trucks know that they have got to be using Martin Luther King if they want. In other words, here's the height, here's the alternative, here's your
Right.
solution, here's your limit, here's your solution, but have that signage back there at a point where they can make that kind of decision.
Right. And to the point about the trucks, I mean, you can have something that has no through trucks. Because no doubt, we're having the traffic come through there that are not deliveries and that have nothing to do with the immediate
Correct.
community. And so absolutely we can do that. Bob, again, I'm bringing up Darien.
No,
But they did it for Darien
For
through
sure.
136. They've done it in other communities that have lobbied to try to get the through truck traffic coming through to get it out of there. So you could do no through commercial trucks in addition
And
to
by the way,
identifying the height of the local delivery trucks.
we are technically part of that 136 corridor.
Just at Straffolino as it turns, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it is a neighborhood, so there are other considerations as well, and maybe some other ideas.
And also, you know, a lot of the trucks that I see that are coming down, they're doing deliveries at the businesses, they're moving trucks for residents down there, and maybe it's also, some effort needs to be made to kind of educate the business owners,
Yes.
the landlords, to, when they know that they're accepting big deliveries, notify these companies, because it's not fun for the truck drivers. They,
Yeah.
you know,
Or
they don't
pay
want to
them.
be put in that
Right.
position and say, heads up, we're in an area with low bridges. You might want to send a small truck if possible, you know, or
Right.
forewarn them that they're coming into an area. And if they just make those notes on their delivery routes, then the
Yeah.
drivers kind of can have a heads up. But if there can be some kind of, you know, information that goes out, you know, saying that,
Excellent, yeah. With
should-
residential landlords too, they can
especially
give it to their
resident,
tenants
tell
and
their
say,
tenants in the lease,
For your
like your
move-in,
moving
yeah.
company, the truck should be no higher than,
right.
Well, it's
than
like
the
a-
bridges,
it's
so
like a
that they can
parking lot.
access.
It's like a parking lot, well marked, you know, you're not gonna clear this if you're above a certain height in your vehicle.
Right, or again, they'll hit that pole, which isn't gonna like break their truck, but it's enough for
Right.
them to hit to say,
It's a trigger.
and it gives them enough time to be non-committed to where they can still back up safely or take another route.
As far as the overheight things go, I'm assuming this bridge is a state highway, Mike?
Straffolino
Is that
Bridge.
136?
Yes.
One-
That's
one-
136,
Yeah, 136, it's also a drawbridge.
Yeah,
Um,
it's Route
you-
136.
Since there is no restriction for height going over that bridge, I don't know that the state would like, and I don't work in a traffic division, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak for them, but, you know, if it's something that's going to continually get hit, that's obviously going to get worn down, it's going to require a lot of maintenance. If they put something across the bridge at 11'2" to, you know, let people know that they're going to hit it. But I don't see why the department would be against providing additional signing on the bridge,
Mhm.
notifying people that, you know, if you continue straight down Washington.
Right, it
There's
could
gonna be
be
a
part of the
problem.
mitigation of what we're all suffering through with the walk bridge. And
Yeah.
so there's been a number of asks to say, help us out in a different area of quality of life, and this is
Mhm.
something that seems relatively like low-hanging fruit to do. I think the other consideration is that we can't be having multiple standards that suit DOT engineers' projects. The 13.5-foot standard that you're talking about with the bridge there, no one has ever suggested lowering the road and widening the road there at that overpass on Washington. However, the only solution being suggested for East Norwalk, and again, I represent the neighborhood association there, the only alternative that's still on the table is the, you know, hundreds of millions of lower the road and widen it so that the tractor trailers can come through there.
Yeah.
And the same consideration, this is a consideration for mitigating bridge strikes in South Norwalk, then East Norwalk would expect to have the same reduced impact mitigation in our part of the community. I'm not asking you to agree with me,
Yeah,
just
no,
to
I-
understand what
there's-
I'm saying.
Yeah, there's different situations of why you can't lower, the Washington Street would be cost prohibitive to lower the road there because of all the utilities and everything
Same thing in East Norwalk.
and
I'll say, like,
drainage and
in
all that.
addition to the, you know, potential damage to the bridge with bridge strikes and everything, from what I've seen, I've worked down on Washington Street for over 10 years, and we get a bad rap for parking. It's not very easy to navigate as it is if you are not familiar with the roads, with the additional road closures because of all of the constant construction projects that have been going on in the neighborhood for the past you know, since they started the ironworks building and one stops, another one starts. To have that kind of traffic back up when these trucks do get stuck on the bridge. I mean, I can see a car that's sitting in front of my store for 15 minutes while the whole ordeal is worked out. And for the business community, it's really important to make efforts to make it more accessible and easier, and to kind of get rid of this bad, you know, rap that we have down there, just as far as, you know, the parking and being able to navigate. People come down and they have a bad experience like that. They get stuck in horrible traffic trying to just come to buy a shop or to go get their hair done. They don't come anymore, and I hear it all the time that people that live in East Norwalk don't like to come to,
I lived in
you know,
East, I lived
I
in East
haven't
Norwalk
been
over
here for
30
years,
years.
you know?
I never go to South Norwalk,
Yeah.
for all the reasons you just said and more. Never,
And then
never down.
just with the timeline that was
Sad.
listed here for the, you know, construction, that's going to directly overlap with, you know, this walk bridge program, you know, replacement. And with all of that added construction going on at the same time, you know, I'm just looking at it as like, we thought when the Pearl was done, we were gonna be in the clear.
Right.
And it's, you know, then the mall, and then the bridge, and then the sensors, and it seems really never ending. So maybe just, well, I drove around, and because, yes, there are signs, but I feel like there could be more signs and signs earlier, like we said, just so that these truck drivers can, yeah, not everybody pays attention, but you put enough of them there and give them alternate, early enough to give them alternate, you know, ways to detour themselves. It might be worth to try something like
We
that
could certainly
before
look at-
all the, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent, you know.
We could certainly look at adding more signs. I'm not sure that they'll still notice them. I think we still need a physical structure there, but we can certainly take those into consideration.
Or to maybe, since this is gonna take years, and maybe to try to see if it does help in the
Yeah.
meantime before, if this project goes through even, like, put some other signs up in the meantime and see if that can help to
Yeah,
to alleviate some of
Yeah.
it.
I think there are interim steps that haven't been tried, haven't been explored yet.
That would be a good question for the state too, so if there's some interim steps that prove to be beneficial to the point where, you know, it almost solves a problem, then maybe then you don't continue with it.
And just to circle back a little bit to the through traffic versus deliveries, I mean, it would be interesting to know how many of these strikes were in fact through through trucks versus deliveries. So it seems to me the delivery trucks, I mean, I live there too, they seem to kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And-
they're regulars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
regulars.
regulars.
I have
The-
a feeling this is a through traffic pattern issue. And that if we were to look at it through that lens, that we might have some other additional solutions. As I said, Martin Luther King Boulevard is a glaring avenue of opportunity. That if we were to direct traffic around there, and by the way, it would reduce lots of wear and tear and potentially costs in terms of the maintenance of that small section of road, because people are the crews are constantly out there doing repairs, and I don't know what reduced traffic from trucks would do there, but I would say that that's something to explore.
The other analysis I'd like to see too is that I think a lot of it had to do with when there are strikes there or minor accidents at that intersection, it seems to bottleneck everything there for a period of time. And when there are strikes there, I think that they have to stop the trains just from a structural, to do a structural review. And I wonder what the impact is at that intersection when the Straffolino Bridge is up. Because I noticed when the bridge is up, the traffic backs all the way up onto Washington, and I thought the shopkeepers probably like that, because then somebody gets an opportunity to sit there and look around.
Look in the
But
window?
it's so maddening that
No,
you
they just
want to
start
find
beeping their horns,
exactly,
and it's loud,
and you want to just find some other way
and the
around
people all
it,
the
but-
way back at the end that, again, aren't familiar with the area, they don't know there's a drawbridge, they don't know that
Right.
it's going up, but you
Yeah.
combine one of these big trucks getting stuck on the street, and then that bridge opens, I mean, people
Yes, sir.
can come out and they can order food and.
Yeah. So for the three
And park
times a
their
year,
cars.
this is an issue versus the drawbridge
Well, I
and
think it's
other
more
issues.
often than 3 times.
maybe. I mean, yeah, right, on
One more
average,
frequent.
right.
The 3 that actually hit the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, the
other-
bridge strikes might be a handful a year,
Yeah.
but the amount of trucks that come down and don't hit the bridge, but realize they're too big and either have to
Right.
reverse, that happens on a daily basis.
Right.
And probably multiple times a day. For 10 years,
Yeah.
that I've seen anyway.
And that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
address a little bit more is those, all the congestion.
Yeah, no,
results.
not everybody hears about that, and I
Yeah.
think unless you're in that
And
area, you
it's hard,
just don't realize.
yeah, it's hard for us to know because there's no accident reports filed.
Yep.
Unless you're listening to the police scanner.
I just have the record of it right here.
There you go.
I will.
So.
And then you don't have the information of where those trucks are going or where they came from or.
So I have a question. I know this is being recorded visually and on the tape. And we're not taking notes. No one's taking minutes or notes of this informational meeting. But we've kind of put out a handful of suggestions. We're wondering, should we try to remember them and write
Yeah,
them
and I
down?
don't see, are you writing down everything we're saying? or
I'm trying to get some of them, but, I
So
mean,
we don't, I
And
don't,
this is the press versus the,
right.
city, so, or.
at a meeting like this, I found that it's always good to summarize your thoughts and submit them. I believe Mike left his, contact information in the
Right.
handout here.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
summarize your thoughts, submit them. The city's
I'm-
gonna have
yeah,
to
I'm all-
essentially respond to those in writing.
And then we'll probably look for other sessions and maybe have someone else here from your staff too to take some notes and make sure everything's getting down so people don't have to do 2 steps. And I would also say, if you can get this on the website tomorrow and let us know what the link is, you have my email for
Yeah.
sure. And then we can get it out to, to the community at large, or at least a little larger neighborhood.
Yeah, because there are associations, there are business councils,
Yeah.
there are organizations.
So,
who
so
have
no
vested
conversation, just, yeah, I think, or they meet
We-
next
we-
week.
We mailed this to over 300, we've mailed over 300 notices on this to all the
Hmm.
residents in the area
For tonight's session?
for tonight's session, yes.
It went US mail to residents?
Yeah, that's how I got it.
Yeah,
I got it through the mail.
everybody from Monroe Street to North Main to Washington.
But in terms
Was
of,
it just residential or?
Property
also
owners.
Property owners.
so
property owners.
commerce, I was thinking of commerce associations and councils and whatnot, and property associations, which are mixed use, because we are mixed use, so my association has, everyone from the restaurant to the finance investors to the residents, and we're all part of one association. So I'm gonna forward this because there are a lot of interested parties, for sure.
I know you're looking for a short time frame on this and getting stuff back, but it may need to be extended, like I said, to have another session, and especially to have one in the community, and I think it should be in South Norwalk.
I mean, that's a decision that the council or the committee makes, so.
Well, or, I mean, Public Works staff couldn't schedule, who scheduled this? Who?
I scheduled this.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
thanks. Can you schedule another one in South Norwalk? Say at the library or another central location there?
I'll talk with my boss about it, but,
The community room and the police station,
Yeah.
that's what.
yeah.
So, isn't there?
But there is a, to notice all these people and, there is a significant cost to do this in time and effort, so I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know if you need to do mailings to everyone out, especially since there wasn't a formal
Well,
public hearing. There's no.
There's no
abutting
public,
neighbors,
there's
but-
no public, it's never meant to be a public hearing.
No, that's what I'm saying, so you wouldn't necessarily have to
There's
do that
never-
type
there's-
of notice, but you could certainly get it to the hour, you could publish it on the website, the association.
It's been in the hour, it's been advertised in the hour twice. It's been, they ran articles.
No, like an article and stuff, so.
No, they ran an
I think
article.
Yeah, I think it was just, what, yesterday or?
No, it was Friday.
Okay.
So, one other issue to bring up, just for consideration here, if we take a step or two back.
It was also on public radio.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I'm glad, thanks for the mailing, because that's how I got it. But I think this is just an issue that really should be within the envelope of city planning as well, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of quality of life. And I know that there is what they call a master plan, right, for conservation and development or whatever.
It's in progress right now.
It's in progress. Now, shouldn't this be folded in or come under the envelope, come within the envelope of city planning? I mean, it would stand, I think it does. In other cities, it certainly would. So I'm just wondering.
Well, it would be part of an 824 review, which is required.
Okay, I don't know what an 824 is, but.
It's a planning review.
Okay,
That it's,
so.
the project is in conformance with city zoning.
Okay, but to me, they're like two bikes that are they're in the same path, but one's ahead of the other, and I'm not sure if they're really connecting. So you're saying there's no public hearing scheduled, or wouldn't be, but this should probably be incorporated, if you will, into whatever reviews are going on as part of the master plan, because this is fairly significant. It's in an historic district, mixed-use district, and so you've got a lot of different parties and investors and investments that are involved, and I would think this would come under the, that heading, if you will, be under that tent, and therefore be subject to some review.
That's why the project takes 2 years, because it has to go to various points. You have to get a starting point
Yeah,
that the community wants the project, and then we work it forward from there. And the aesthetics of the project,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
no, I was just thinking how it works out so that people can review this more.
Yeah.
And
More
I'm
review is better.
suggesting
Oh, yeah.
it could come under the master plan review and be part of that. As opposed to, we've got till September 4th to submit, our feedback.
What is the September 4th deadline? Is that time critical to something with funding, or? What's driving that?
That's a 2-week comment period on the project.
Okay.
What your comments are on the project.
But if that were extended for, 30, 60, 90 days, it wouldn't impact anything with the approval or the awards of the funding or what the next steps are?
Yeah, I mean, it would delay moving the project further along. So
Right, but we wouldn't jeopardize the awarding of the funds or anything?
Not that.
We wouldn't lose the
No,
funding?
not that I'm aware of.
Jeff, you're with the DOT?
Yes.
Can you also provide a list of any other community that has done a similar project with the infrared detection?
I could
Or someone
try
from
to.
your office, or- We're not the first, so.
No, I know the state does have a couple. I'm sure somebody has an inventory of them somewhere.
Okay. And what is your capacity with the project?
I work in our local roads office. I essentially work with the municipalities to try to shepherd them through different funding sources. This is a city project that they chose. They applied for funding under one of the programs, and then once it gets awarded, it gets assigned to me to just sort of help the city through the process.
Okay.
Any other questions or suggestions?
Well, what would be next steps?
I would
Besides
encourage you guys to put your comments in writing and submit them to the city, and if you're gonna forward them on to anybody else, have them do the same thing. And then at the end of the comment period, whether or not it gets extended, the city and, will probably be a part of it, reviewing the comments that we receive. And,
But it just, to me, it seems splintered off again.
Yeah.
Not to come back to this master plan, but, I mean, shouldn't this be part of the process involving the city master plan, which I know is,
Master plan is done once every
10
10 years, so you can't
no.
always
this one is-
always tie a
this one
project
is
with
fairly-
master plan.
This one is kind of underway because it's really overdue and
Right, the
there's a lot of
10-year, right, the
gaps.
10-year one is the one that we're doing now, and that
Right.
actually comes to public comment, I think, with it. The draft comes to public comment, probably in the next 60 days. Not that there's not time to influence it, but what you don't want to be doing, as the city's drafting the master plan, is be looking to implement something that's counter to it.
Correct.
And if it's something that's supplemental to it that the public would have wanted, you'd want to add it in there so that you get feedback from it from the perspective of the plan.
Well, that's why I'm
I
bringing it up.
totally agree with you. Because in the end, people will use the master plan to either point to something to say, aha, it's not in there, or aha, it was in there, and people need to understand the context of this type of infrastructure,
That's
why
right.
it wasn't or wasn't in there.
And if nothing
That's
else,
everything.
Norwalk needs more
Yeah.
cohesion on that front.
So maybe you just want to give Steve, so that's all controlled under the planning commission, and Steve Kleppin's the head of planning and zoning, so he kind of controls that, but there's a POCD oversight committee too. That is fairly comprehensive on the city's website and also on the one they came up with called Norwalk Tomorrow.
Mm.
And so you could provide some feedback there as well. And it may already, I didn't do a lot of interaction with the South Norwalk meetings, but it may have already come up in the neighborhood meetings that they had there and the community stakeholder meetings they had there, but I wouldn't leave it to chance.
Mm-mm.
And we could certainly we'll talk with Steve. about
Who's in a position to determine whether to extend the comment period? Is that through Public Works, is it through the DOT, or is it through Common Council Public Works Committee?
It would be, I mean, the hope was to get on the Public Works Committee meeting, which is September 4th. So if we delayed it to the October 4th
Right.
meeting, I mean, we can certainly do that if that's,
Okay,
yeah.
or November or December, so,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And the point is, I mean,
It seems
after a
to me-
certain time, people are not gonna comment on the project, so.
Oh, I think
Right.
people are getting in the
Yeah.
mood to comment on projects.
The
They've been
chair
finding
of
out.
Public Works this term, is that John Igneri, do you know?
This John, yeah.
Okay, so John Igneri's the common councilman who's chair of the committee,
Okay.
and then Bruce Schmento, who Mike reports to, is the head of the Public Works Department. I think between the two of them, it seems reasonable to say that this wouldn't be on a September agenda. There's just no time. And maybe not even plan on it being on an agenda until another session is held, or at least a whole public comment open.
Mhm. Yeah, because it definitely has different elements in affecting different kind of aspects of the community. So that makes sense. Need more time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.